Ready?
Yep.
Okay. 5.5, school funding and BSD 7 resolution update.
Yeah, this is intended to be a shorter item. I passed out 3 pieces of paper, and then also want to give an opportunity for Trustee Lucine to give us an update on some things he's working on, but trying to connect some dots here. So on October 9, this board approved 3 specific resolutions. They're on one of those pieces of paper. One of them was to change the process for discussing the system of education in Montana. That's the one that Trustee Lucine is full steam ahead on. Number 2 was tied to the decennial and the system or the definition of a basic free system of public ed, and having a deeper dive to ensure that it is taking into account all the things that Montana's public schools expect. And then 3 regional cost adjustments in Montana school funding formula for places like Bozeman and Big Sky and Flathead Valley, et cetera. Take you to the one that says possible common ground. So there's been a lot of conversation with Montana's stakeholders. There's been MTSBA think tank conversations. There's the whole MTSBA legislative process and priorities. And then MTSBA comes together with school administrators of Montana and MASBO and MREA and all the acronyms under the CAMPS umbrella. So CAMPS is an acronym. We, AA superintendents, meet weekly. We met with Rob Watson early July around where the CAMPS group is at with potential advocacy for the next session. And this is a 2-sided piece of paper. I can tell you that right now they're putting a lot of conversation and a lot of effort into number 1 and number 2. Those of you that have been following along the think tank, I think Lance Melton had proposed significant funding formula changes that were totaling around $140 million in increased revenue for Montana's public schools. I think, long story short, they met with some key legislative players like Lou Jones and others, and they said there's no way you're getting $140 million. So it's been scaled back a little bit. And so number 1 and number 2 are items that my perception is that Lou Jones feels like the legislature could entertain and move forward. Number 1 is tied to the Teach Act, tied to increasing starting salary for Montana's public schools. MTSBA has run some numbers that your starting salary in this scaled up approach in year 1, FY26, that your starting salary must be at least 64% of your average teacher salary. I think the data they provided from Bozeman is we're right around that number. So we would be very close to that FY26 goal. To move beyond that, it would take some changes in our collective bargaining agreement. So I just want you to be aware that number 1, MTSBA and SAM is recommending prior to the legislative session that we begin to have conversations with our teachers unions across the state about possible MOUs tied to this, possible MOUs that to receive these Teach Incentive Act new dollars, that we put an MOU in place that says those dollars need to go to the starting teacher salary. As you know, in negotiations, the starting teacher salary is often not the focus of the group in the room. It's typically veteran teachers in the room that are looking for moving or putting dollars all across the schedule. So that's a piece of the puzzle. Number 2 is major maintenance fund. Number 3 is some more personalized learning, CTE dollars. If you move to the back, we were pleased to see that the cost of living adjustments did make the list. At least they're talking about those, listing the counties that have higher than average median home market value and some funding formula changes there. And then there's just a variety of other, up to 10 there, of other things going on. I bring this to you just so You know, this is where the camps groups are currently having their conversations. One piece that Mike Lacey and I have talked a lot about is we're seeing MTSBA full steam ahead in terms of moving the funding formula away from a focus on A and B and enrollment to more of a focus on quality educators, the number of quality educators in the district. We're pleased to see they've expanded their definition of quality educator beyond teachers, and they're including paras and custodians and some other things in that pot. But our caution, and it's kind of gone on deaf ears thus far, is the caution is if we're seeing declining enrollment across the state, all you had to do was watch the news and the large AA's. That resulted in fewer teachers. They're all cutting certified teachers. So putting all the eggs in the basket of the number of certified teachers, as enrollment goes down, the number of teachers goes down, which means the number of dollars is going to go down. So we've been pushing for every district has some fixed costs. They need Wi-Fi. They need insurance, they need custodians, they need a superintendent, they need a clerk, they need a variety of things, and they all have football teams, they all have basketball teams. To try to build in some of those fixed costs and have an inflationary increase tied to the fixed costs, which are going to help all Montana's public schools. So that's our take on that thus far. I think the other items I want you to be aware of is the 25 legislature is tasked with the decennial study and what they do about the decennial study. We've heard from the players that be that the budget amount or the fiscal note tied to the decennial study really shows how serious they are about digging into that funding formula. Small fiscal note means they're going to check boxes. Large fiscal note is they're going to really spend time bringing consultants and look at the funding formula. The other item on the agenda, number 4, is the Governor Gianforte has a property task force. Property tax fatigue is real, and Lance Melton is one of the key educational players on that task force. And some of these ideas that he has are being vetted through that task force. The other piece of paper I gave you is legislative priorities. And so I know that we're going to give Trustee Lucene chance to give you an update on where he's at with the consensus conversations, which are could result in legislative action, but are very focused on a non-legislative process, a different discussion. You guys as trustees approved this in the fall of 22 for the 23 session, and I'm just getting it out there to you again that we will be asking for input on legislative priorities, but that this board typically produces a document similar to this to help guide conversations and advocacy. Before I jump over to Trustee Lucene, any questions, or Lacey or Mike, am I missing anything? Seeing none. Trustee Lucene.
Yeah, thanks, Casey. I guess just to give you a little update on, there's something related to this and our previous resolutions. I'm on the OPI Committee D, on the Budget and Education Committee, and our committee is discussing sustainability and tax burden. So the funding formula has come up quite a bit, obviously. And so I've been, in that discussion, been promoting stuff in our resolution, extracurricular activities, et cetera, and that. So that's part of that, at least that process, that mix, so we'll see where that goes. So relative to the effort to get people together to discuss our system of education, I decided recently I'm just going to go ahead and schedule a meeting, which is October 2nd, 3rd. I think I've sent that out to you guys. I've gotten good feedback from people so far. Probably the strongest supporter I've heard from so far is Board of Public Ed. They're very interested in doing this. OPI is on board. I'm not visiting with Elsie on this. I visited with her a lot in the past, and I'm pretty sure she's on board to it, but I've been visiting with Julie Mergel there. And I tried to structure the attendee list of a total of 80 people, and this will be held at the Grand Tree, to really get the voices of teachers, administrators, parents, students, and trustees in the room. So I intentionally limited the number of people from MTSBA as one, MFPE as one, SAM as one. I just heard from Rob, he's not going to be able to be there because some conflict came up. So, but he's working on getting administrators there, different administrators. So it's coming together pretty good. When I went to the June 17th constitutional partner meeting, legislative meeting, so I sat through that all day, and then I testified at the end and gave them the handout of our survey and stuff. And the person from NCEE, National Council on Economy and Education, and that's who Lou Jones connected with 2 or 3 years ago. Originally it was Jason Dougal, who's one of the CEOs of NCEE, and they're based back in DC. They've done years of, data collection and studies and working with districts around the world, actually, gathering information on really looking at what different areas are doing that are really advancing education. And that, Lou keeps referring to those. Singapore, and then they went to Canada to look at the proficiency-based thing. And I talked with Jason after MCEL last year. And he was very receptive of this concept. So now Janice Case is the individual from NCEE that was at the meeting, kind of facilitating the meeting, asked everybody attending questions and had them answer those questions to gather information. And it was very interesting because comments during the discussion from many of the partners and the responses that they had written out on their phones or computers in answer to Janice's questions, really, a lot of those focused on getting more information, having a deeper discussion on these topics, and which to me fits exactly in with, at least in my concept, what this meeting hopefully would produce. So I contacted Janice Case from NCEE and had a visit with her a week ago yesterday, about an hour-long meeting. And she had some really good information and has some good thoughts and concepts. And so she's worked with other states and districts around the country that are really looking at their system of education. And what my pitch to people is that I totally support the legislative process, and I respect that, but that's not the right process to be discussing our system of education. And it's been interesting when I talk with different people. I've talked with 4 different people on the MTSBA board, talked with other people, stakeholders. Some capture what that means right away. Others, they don't. Their mind is still in the legislative process format. And so when I think about the funding formula, to me, our funding formula has been built on quantity, not quality. And there's a difference in how you fund each one of those. So you might have lower quantity of things, but if you want a high quality within that, you have to fund it to make sure it works. So it's just a change in a mindset to me that I think we at least need to discuss and really build a funding formula that's based on what we need to provide a quality education, and not think of it as, well, number of students or number of teachers, because we need more of that. If we want a high-quality education system, that's going to take funding. So it's going to be an interesting discussion on that. This meeting that will happen in October, I'm hoping to have full 80 people there. I've already gotten comments from some people that would not be participants, but they want to sit in on the meeting and observe it, just to observe the process. So I'm trying to arrange that. So it's a most interesting thing, and which I would appreciate some advice on or information on, which we don't have to do it now, but maybe later, is teachers, apparently, for them to get those days off, the second, third, which is a Wednesday and Thursday. And I chose those days because of feedback I got from teacher group about that might be the easiest time for them to, get off. So I've been communicating with Amanda Curtis on that. Has expressed willingness to, and Kim, I forget her last name, within the MFP is working to get teachers, but they keep indicating that, well, the issue is the teachers are going to have to either use their vacation time or get paid time off or get approval from the administration and I don't know exactly how that works. So I just want to make sure we have teachers in the room. So I'm kind of working on that. So it's just interesting working with these different groups and hearing about what their interest is and what barriers they have, and living in their reptilian mind and stuff. So, and putting the agenda together is something I'm working on, and that may change a little bit based on what Janice Case from NCEE and her discussion with Pat McCracken coming up next week is about maybe having her come in to educate everybody in the room about the system of education, what they're finding in different states and countries about how they look at their system of education, to get people in the right mindset that, we need to look at our system. What is our system? What do we want it to be? What does it need to be? And how do we do that? And the end result is, okay, we need more discussions on this, so let's put a process in place, which so far I've heard from other people that they feel that could definitely fit into OPI. And talking with people at OPI, that could very well be the case. So just trying to put this together in a way to where this initial meeting is just a start. It's not the end result. It's not going to produce any solutions. It's just going to hopefully have the agenda, which I think Diane Groves, who's going to facilitate it, can do once we kind of figure out exactly what we want the agenda to be, so we can finalize that in 2 days, which is going to be tight. How the education piece of this with Janice could fit in, that might be very beneficial. We're still working on that. She could help facilitate. With 80 people, Diane may need additional people to kind of help facilitate the small groups. We're kind of working on that, getting that pulled together. So we'll see how it goes. So, yes.
Do you need a BSD 7 trustee on October 2nd and 3rd?
Well, do I?
No. I offered, and you said you'd get back to me, so.
So it's interesting you bring that up, because I visited with Sue Corrigan from Kalispell. She's currently the president of MTSBA board. And previous communication with Lance on this, on gathering trustees. Lance asked me if I'm going to gather the AA trustees. I said, sure. So, because I wanted somebody that understands the consensus process. So yes, we have, I don't know how that formality will go, but Sandy has offered to participate in that.
And then do you need teachers or admin from our district?
What I've done, I did this kind of very similar to how Rob did the Health Trust.
Yep.
So I've communicated with every key stakeholder group, MREA, SAM, MFPE, MTSBA, OPI, Board of Public Ed, Board of Regents, Governor's Office, everybody, parents. I've got a parent in Great Falls, very active. She's going to kind of take on the parent stuff. I'm trying to locate a parent in Bozeman. So if you know of any parent that might be interested in connecting with the parent in Great Falls to kind of organize the parent side of this, that would be very helpful. So yes, I'm selecting the AA trustees that sit on it to be AA, A, B, C, independent elementaries. Can have a trustee representative. I think that there's 8 people from independent elementaries, could be teachers, administrators, and trustees, for a total of 8. Rob's trying to get some administrators from Native American schools, so they have some representation. So I'm trying to capture all the people that are involved in the legislative process of this. So hopefully, we've got everybody.
You had a question about teachers and their not having to use vacation time or personal days. My recommendation is that Rob and school administrators in Montana is the key to that equation. So if superintendents and principals are supportive of this concept, then they're on the hook to provide paid leave for their teachers to attend.
Okay.
So, for example, I'm very supportive of this concept. If we had an educator or 2 in Bozeman Public Schools that you wanted there, representing classified or certified, we would provide paid leave for them to be there.
Okay, so that's good to know, because I'm, at this point, based on the process, I'm relying on Amanda Curtis. I've talked to Eric about this, to find those teachers, AA, A, B, C, different grade bands.
Is MFPE offering to pay their leave?
No.
Yes. Okay.
So I've indicated to Amanda that if she's having trouble finding teachers, then let me know and I will pursue getting teachers. So my hope is that we have, I definitely want Bozeman people involved, but I want parents and everybody, teachers from different areas of the state, or at least regionally. So I think that's important. But when it comes down to it, once we know, I have to know when everybody's going to participate by first part of September. So I've told everybody that. Like, send me names, contacts, and I'll begin to connect with each one of those individuals about reservations at the Grand Tree and more details, agenda, and stuff like that. If I'm not getting response from, it could be teachers or trustees or whatever, then I will start reaching out and try and gather those individuals so they're in the room for the meeting. So, any questions, thoughts?
So am I in? What?
if our board's fine with it, that's great. Okay. Yeah, okay, yes, you
Jim,
are.
yeah, I mean, does anybody have any objection?
There's always that guy.
Who was the guy? Oh, did Kevin do something?
It's
Oh.
going like this. Again.
I'm seeing
Just-
support of the board for trustee Wilson to participate.
One interesting thing, I'll just finalize with this, is another group that will be at the table who's definitely on board to participate is the educator prep programs. So I've been in communication with Tricia Seifert, met with her and Allison Harmon recently about this, and then I emailed them back about, I'm interested to know what you feel our system of education is. Well, they're going to have a discussion about that sometime this summer, because it was, and I've talked to other people about that. Like, what is our system of education? And it's finding it very, some people have no idea what it is. I don't even know, I might have my own thought of the system, but I don't know if it's right. The only consistent comment as well, it's an old system. You know, it's out of date, or doesn't fit or something, but really, what is it and what should it be? And that's what I'm hoping comes out of this. Because it's going to take time to do any of this. It's going to take time to get to a funding formula that is really effective. And I think this, what I've told the legislators is this process could really help you guys figure out what you need to do, what you need to fund, and why you need to fund it. And I do have, I invited 4 legislators. Well, no, the attendee list is 4 legislators. I've invited Beatty, Jones, Solomon, Connie Keogh, and Shannon O'Brien. And think about Linda Reskin, inviting her. So I've heard from 2 of them that are very interested in participating, and hopefully hear from Beatty, Jones, or Solomon sometime in August. We'll see.
I just have a thought, Gary. When you're, not you, but when the group is being asked about its perception of our system of education, in the interest of attempting to move something forward and knowing that words matter, and knowing that the less convoluted and more kind of on point and dialed in things can be, especially with an effort, a grassroots effort like this. And maybe I'm off base here, but I think when the group's being asked to consider what our system of education currently is, would it be more beneficial to have the group consider what the constitutionally defined definition of a public education is? Because I've heard, like Mike, I've heard Mike in the past mention that, just as an example of one of the whole sea of problems that there are with the current definition of a public education, extracurriculars are not addressed in our, and that, I mean, there's other things, I don't know what else there is, but there's lots of other things that are not even in the current definition of what we are constitutionally mandated to fund with the definition of a public education, of what public education in Montana is. So it's just, I guess it's just a thought to change the wording from what our system of education is to what our definition of public education is as defined by the Constitution, because that to me is where you can actually start to achieve some change on the back end of this effort that you're spearheading.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, that's an interesting topic, because what I've done is I've taken Article 1 out of, or Section 1 out of Article 10 of the Constitution, which says it's the will of the people to establish a system of education that allows people to reach their full potential. And 20-9-309, which is the definition of basic and free system of education, it has that whole list of what is involved in a basic system of education. So I've read through that several times. I talked to Lance about this as well. And my read on that is that does not define our system. Nothing in there to me addresses the workload teachers and administrations have every day, what their workload is, what all their busy work is, what's taking them away from really providing the educational services that we all expect and they want to provide. When you relate that to Lou's effort on proficiency-based education and wanting to get that in place, that, to me, our system of education doesn't allow that. That we have to, that's why I think we have to have these discussions from teachers and administrators. What do you need to do in your day? What do you need to eliminate from your day? That's kind of busy work. I've already heard that from people at MASBO. So what can you take out of your day that would give you more time? So if we want to do more PLCs, I've heard this since I've first been on the board, is we need more time. We need more time to do this. And I've never been in a discussion with MTSBA or anybody else about really digging into, well, what's taking up your time? You know, what's causing you to spend more time doing other stuff? The interesting thing on the survey we did that ended up going around the state was that the teachers and administrators made comments, respond to the questions that of the issues taking up their time. It's communication with parents, it's behavioral issues, there's all these issues. So how do we address that? That's disrupting our system of education to apply all the things in the definition of education. And the parent response was very positive about being able to communicate with their teachers and administrators, which to me was very validating to what at least I've been hearing about teachers spending time communicating with parents, emails or phone, or administrators doing the same thing. So that's taking up their time. So we want to do that for sure, but what's a better system to do that so those teachers have more time to collaborate together? Because that's a key piece of the proficiency-based system. And that's what NCEE is finding out as they're researching these other states and countries, is I think what I read was that teachers in high-performing schools spend about 40% of their time actually teaching. The other 60% is spent collaborating and analyzing things and really putting things together. So it's just very interesting, but that's one of the things of the system of education that, at least in my involvement in this stuff for the last 20 years, has never been discussed. So I totally agree with what you're saying, but I'm trying to focus on Article 10, Section 1, will of the people to establish a system of education. So that's the focus.
Here's the definition. 1, it says a set of principles or procedures according to which something is done, an organized framework or method, and the example is the public school system.
So if anybody has any thoughts or questions or anything, please get a hold of me.
Thanks, Gary.
I think we're good. You want me to roll the next item?
Does that conclude 5.4?
5.5.
5.5?
Yep.
Any trustee questions? Back here. Thank you, Gary. Up next, item 5.5, school funding and BSD 7 resolution update. Excuse me, we just concluded that one. 24-25 LRSP 5-year plan discussion.
And thank you. This is our final agenda item. I'll try to keep you awake. I know that anything after lunch is hard. Thanks for hanging in there. I want to say from the outset that I feel like this topic is my job. Like if you were to summarize what I'm tasked with doing, I hold this 5-year plan and implementing the long-range strategic plan as the main item that I'm responsible for. So what you have is a draft of the framework. This is not an action item, it's a discussion item, so any feedback you have along the way or at the end related to this framework, and then this will come back in August as a consent item for board approval of the 5-year plan. This is very much tied to the measurable goals. There are other items in the LRSP. For example, each of our sites does an action plan that would be built off this. Each site does school board luncheons. Each site has their own set of goals, but this is the foundational document that ties it together and it's built off of. So it's very much tied to the measurable goals. A reminder that we used to have 4. They were all under academic performance, and then through the good work of the revision process, they said, what good is having a goal area without having a measurable goal? So we moved some things around, we added some things, and so today is, I want to walk you through as quickly as possible how we plan to address these goals. So if you turn to page 2, goal area 1, there's 2 items, grade level reading goal and graduation goal. Grade level reading goals tied to reading proficiency at the end of 3rd grade. Our most recent progress is 74%. The goal was extended by the revision process to move it out to 2029. That was for 2 reasons. One, taking a realistic picture on where we were at and how long it was going to take to get there. And then 2, the pretty significant increase we're seeing in multilingual English learner population within the district. There's 9 items there. You can read through those on your own. A lot of that work and systems has been done. So we've been working on this for a long time, working on professional development around the science of reading, slowly implementing new core resources at K2, 3, 5, and at the middle school to teach reading. Slowly building out MTSS systems and professional learning community systems that are tied together to ensure high quality, first best instruction, and then to ensure that kids who need interventions or extensions get those. The items that are new, I'll just touch on them briefly, but additional multi-English learner support. So many of you know Gia LaForge. She had a district position training teachers around multilingual English learners. We're moving her position to direct services to kids, so we're adding the number of adults in our buildings that can provide purposeful instruction on English language to MLEL students. So we'll have 2 positions, K5, 1 sharing between 2 different buildings. I'm not sure what the sharing pattern is going to be, but Highlight, Irving, Meadowlark, and Emily will all see consistent MLEL support. Opening of Bozeman Reed's Early Learning Center, and then all of our summer Jumpstart programming is 100% tied to this goal. And then, targeted early literacy Jumpstart. So there's not a lot of new things there. We're not looking to add new initiatives, add new training, add new things. We feel like we've built the systems, and now we just need to work within those systems and continue to, kid by kid, standard by standard, focus on reading achievement for our students. Graduation goal, I'll talk about briefly and then take any feedback on that goal area. We extended the timeline again to 2029, that we'd have 95% of our cohort. So if you start and you graduate within 4 years in your cohort, we've made a lot of progress with adding pathways. So Senate Bill 18 had some pathways for students who had traumatic experiences or things that got in the way of their education. We've always had an exceptional circumstances diploma. We added HiSET options and are continuing to see those kids be highly successful. That graduation rate is very high for those kids in the HiSET options program. And then the high school itself is making a change that, to be honest, I didn't know if we'd ever get there. So to fundamentally change the high school schedule to have intervention, extension time, collaboration time built in is a significant undertaking that will launch this fall. So when you add all of those pieces of the puzzle together, we feel like we're on track to make continued headway on this goal. The only new item on page 3, if you are a parent in middle school or high school, on your parent portal, you see on the first page how your student is doing in any of the subject areas. We're expanding that to K-5. We're making some changes in the K-5 report card where it's only going to report on the essential standards, not the hundreds of standards we have, but the essential standards. So after the mid-year report card comes out, we're going to turn that feature on. That's going to be we have a lot of teachers doing great work K-5, but it doesn't end up in their grade book, and we're asking them to use their grade book to monitor that student progress. So that will happen mid-year, and then we'll have all grade bands with PowerSchool parent portal access. I'll pause there. Goal area 1, if you have any questions or concerns.
Casey, in grade level reading goal, items 1 through 3, those are all, and you mentioned it, they're all things in the past. Will those be removed, or is it important to continue to maintain those as they relate to other things that are
Yeah,
important
good
to
question.
tout?
We'll maintain those, and that's the reason they're on there. It's a significant undertaking to maintain them. So, for example, if you are a new teacher and you're in grades 3 through 5 and you don't have science of reading background, we need to get those new teachers up to speed on science of reading professional development. We have a mechanism to do that. Then we also need to get you up to speed on all the curriculum, so wonders at 3 through 5. So yes, we're going to continue to build on those. I guess what I'm saying is we don't anticipate big reading adoptions in the next few years because we just have adopted these areas.
So Casey, on those, would it be feasible, instead of having the rollout word, because we've already completed those, would it be maintenance of, or something like that?
Yeah, yes.
Just as far as communication goes, it's a public document. And get rid
Yeah,
of the dates.
that's good feedback. Thank you. Okay, I'll keep trucking. So goal area 2 is operations and capacity building. There are 2 goals in this area. So the first one, professional learning communities goal. This group has talked a lot about that. We have 4 model PLC sites. They're all K-5 schools. That goal area, the date was again adjusted. If you go down to that table at the bottom of page 3, that kind of outlines some tasks per year up to that spring of 28 when that goal is the target date. So beginning 24-25, all sites, K-12, have teacher collaboration time and designated intervention extension time in the master schedule. That was a long time coming, a lot of work, K-5, 6, 8, and 9, 12, but we're excited about rolling that out. For 2 years, we've hired Sarah Hayes as a PLC admin coach focused in the first year on K-8, the second year on 6-12. And then that position disappears after 25-26. Right now, to help measure implementation, all of our K-5 schools are using sort of the The handbook on professional learning communities is that learning by doing book, and there's rubrics associated with that. So all of our K-5 sites have been once a year, all their teams go through those rubrics to take stock of where they're at. We're expanding that to include the middle schools this year, and Sarah Hayes, a big part of her work will be helping School A go from A to B to C to D on those rubrics and making progress in all those areas. That will expand to the high schools the following year, then we'll continue to sustain and refine that. This coming year, we have a handful of elementary schools that are working on their applications and that we'll be submitting for model PLC status. By 26-27, we'll have the middle school. They will have their 3+ years of the new schedule in place. And by 27-28, the high schools will have their 3+ years. And so the goal of being a model PLC district by 2028 is attainable. A new goal, or it's a goal placeholder, is the non-instructional operations of our district, which, Mike, is that a third of our employees? About a third of our employees, custodians, building secretaries, food service, a variety of folks that are non-instructional. The placeholders by 2025, the district will establish measurable goals for the non-instructional operations. Where we're at with that is that Mike Waterman will be on the hook to lead that goal area, and the preliminary goal discussed is a goal focusing on effectiveness and efficiency of those operations. And the way we see it right now is at least annually, all non-instructional employees will have the opportunity to initiate a meeting with their immediate supervisor to discuss their ideas on ways to improve effectiveness and efficiency. We know that it's important if you ask for that feedback, that there's feedback loops that happen. So if I'm a food service worker and I have a great idea and I share that with my supervisor, that I hear back in some way, shape, or form why or why not it's moving forward and those pieces of the puzzle. So Mike will be working on finalization of goal language, communication with our employee groups, a process and format for those meetings, and then that feedback and communication loop. Because this is a district goal, when we finalize the actual goal, we'll bring it to trustees for approval. That's goal area 2. I'd take any questions or feedback. Okay, they're really awesome or you're really sleepy. Either one is fine with me right now. Goal area 3 is community engagement and partnerships. This I felt like was really good work of the revisioning group to take that early literacy goal, which is largely dependent on things that happen outside of our school district, and move it under this community engagement and partnerships, because that's what it's going to take. Bozeman Reads is the primary driver of this goal. So we changed Megan Roth's job description, hired her as Bozeman Reads Early Learning Center Coordinator. Her job description is linked there. A few key pieces of the puzzle there are the 4-year-old program at Morningstar, the summer program for entering kindergarten students, and then probably most importantly tied to this goal is all the other work she does with community partners and training. So for example, going to Hawk's Nest and training that staff on the science of reading, or working with HRDC or the preschool on campus. So she's going to spend a lot of time this coming year at Morningstar, but also in the community training childcare providers. Another part of that goal is just ongoing collaboration with community partners. So if you're on the Bozeman Schools Foundation board, there's a lot of exciting things going on related to Bozeman Reads. They received a $50,000 matching grant from AMB West. And then our partnership with Montana State University, the foundation there, Christine Lux, who's in charge of pre-K instruction at the college. Her whole job is endowed, and the endowment fund is going to do the matching grant for the other $50,000 for A and B. Then Jen has been working hard and has close to $200,000 raised for all of the startup costs. So furniture and curriculum materials and all the things that go into those classrooms are going to be funded by the community and partnerships in the foundation. HRDC Head Start. The one thing I did want to tell you is one area we were really excited about at the 4-year-old program is the partnership with Thrive to have expanded home visiting. The funding for that just did not materialize yet. We're continuing to work on that. So we've signed part of our MOU with Head Start. Is the Head Start program does very limited home visiting, so they meet with families prior to the start of school, and then they have a parent-teacher conference. Head Start will partner with us and provide that, and our teachers will participate in that. But we're looking, that's one area that Jen's going to focus on 24-25 with the foundation, is to get some startup funding for that expanded home visiting component. So goal area 3 is really, in a nutshell, Bozeman Reads. We've been asked at the School Administrators of Montana conference that's coming up soon to present on our implementation of targeted early literacy in Bozeman Reads. We see it as a real success story across the state. I'll pause. Okay. Goal area 4, two very important areas and 2 areas where, in a nutshell, I believe these are going to be the 2 professional goals in my evaluation. 2 new areas that we need to take on. That's why when we started talking about boundaries, I was really hoping for lowercase consensus because these are going to be heavy lifts coming out of my office. First one, staff well-being goal. By 2025, the district will establish a system to measure and respond to culture and climate, how our employees are doing, really working on not only recruitment, but the retention aspect, job satisfaction, well-being. We had a Humanex culture and climate survey that asked some great questions, but it wasn't getting into the morale, job satisfaction, and well-being area. So we've worked with the DOCC. The plan right now is that we're not re-upping Humanex, and we've signed a contract with Panorama Education, which is another school culture, school climate survey, research vetted or evidence-based survey. They have a bunch of topics you can measure. We've preliminarily selected staff well-being, staff leadership relationships, and school climate. Those questions that are canned in there and normed across a really large norm sample really get into what our teachers are wanting out of this goal. So the plan is to work with the DOCC to finalize that, to communicate it, and to articulate it to our employees. And then I think the most important part is, after we get that initial data, is what are we going to do about it? So action plans will follow. Nothing's going to happen in the LRSP this year other than we're going to select the tool, get the initial data, and then there'll be action plans in future years tied to how we're going to get better at culture and climate in the district.
Thanks, Casey. Just for clarification, when it says by 2025, does that mean by January of 2025 or by December of 2025?
The group didn't come to any sort of consensus. The agreement was that we would use this year to build this goal. And so we've selected the tool, we'll get the initial baseline data, then the DOCC will wrestle with what's an appropriate goal. Then we'll bring that goal back to the trustees during this school year. My understanding of 25 is the 24-25 school year. So I feel like we have all year to make this work. Yeah, good question. Yep.
The Panorama program that's replacing Humanex, does it give us guidance on? Sorry. You can scold me, Leona. Broke my own rule. Okay. Does Panorama give us guidance on what to do with the data?
Yeah, very similar to Humanex. You get access to their consultants who come in and help you walk through and make sense of the data. Part of the challenge we experienced with HumanX is there was not total ownership that like school climate and school culture is incumbent on the people in the building. So there was a lot of teacher feedback that they wanted the district to fix their culture. And so that was part of the challenge. And this asks better questions, but then their consultants will walk our different sites through what does that mean and how do we make it better. There is certainly, don't mishear me, there is certainly a district component to what central office is doing and what we're doing in our collective bargaining agreement, our wellness plan, and all those things. But at the end of the day, it's the people within the building at Irving or the people within the building at CJ that determine the culture within that building. Yep. Okay, the other one is a student well-being goal. By 2025, district will establish a system that measures and responds to barriers that limit student engagement. I intended to have this book for all of you because I know you have nothing else to do. You want to read a book. But actually, this is a book I've been poring over this summer. I don't know if any of you have read it, The Anxious Generation, How the Great Rewiring of Childhood is Causing an Epidemic of Mental Illness. The book really digs into the details and the history of when mental health, particularly anxiety and depression rates, not just in the US, but across the world, correlates with the advent of the front-facing camera phone and social media and every adult and child having one of these in their hands. So when we look at barriers that limit student engagement, everything I've talked about thus far, there's a lot of academic things in there. Grade level reading, MTSS systems, PLC systems. We feel like we're doing a lot of work on the academic side. This goal, we feel like the barriers that we need to look into are some of the, how are our kids actually doing mental health wise? And we're seeing, you've heard from our middle schools and high schools, the number of 504 plans they have now for students with anxiety or students with depression. Suicide rates in Montana, our youth behavior risk survey data is pretty alarming when you dig into it year after year. So it's a topic that I'm excited about digging into. I can give you kind of the spoiler alert on the book. What they ask, the way out of this, they ask schools to put in cell phone policies that get cell phones out of schools and that we allow our kids to play more or to engage in less structured, riskier play, that we've sort of padded all the play and there's rules for everything. This is a goal area that I don't have the end result. I don't want to have the end result right now. I think it's a community-wide goal and a community-wide conversation. What I can tell you, what I'd like it to look like is that we would start a working group beginning this school year that would have some the key people that need to be there from central office, deputy superintendents, Chad Berg, Johanna Burtkin, some community members and key partners like Bozeman Health, Billings Clinic, the City County Health Department, John Nielsen, some key parents, and so think small consensus working group that takes stock of our current data regarding mental health, that we'd collectively read this book. I ordered one of these for all of you. That we would recommend some measurable goals and action plans, and recommend some possible policy changes for the board to look at in relationship to cell phones in particular. I feel like that's something we can tackle this fall. Moving into the winter, community engagement phase, where all of that information we learned, we would communicate it in a variety of ways. I don't know if you've ever been in a Johanna Burtkin presentation. She's amazing, and she will do a presentation on drug use or vaping or suicide prevention. We'll advertise it widely, and we'll get like 2 parents to show up. So we're looking to change that and figure out what the barriers are so we can have some community-wide conversations about some of these tougher topics. And then we would also engage in some survey tools around cell phone use and cell phone policies. What I'm seeing across the country is people are reading this book, schools are having a knee-jerk reaction, and they're passing a policy as step one. Parents are all on board, like, yes, we see cell phones are a challenge for our kids and social media is ruining our child. However, it's easier said than done. So the school passes the policy, they live it for a month, and then there's all this backlash and they repeal the policy. So I feel like it's missing that knowledge component and community engagement. So phase 2 is community engagement, and then phase 3, we would hope by the end of the year, we'd be bringing something to the board, policy-wise, tied to helping our kids be healthy and tied to what we're going to do with cell phones within our school district.
Casey, really
Yes.
quick, do the dates for these 3 things need to be upped by a year for each of them? Fall 2024, winter 2025?
Yes, good catch.
I can't be more excited about some goals right now than these 2 goals, addressing the well-being of our teachers and our kids, because we're in the people business. And especially this one about the cell phone, and that we're going to take the time to do this, because I personally, and I've read many researchers saying that cell phone use is a form of addiction, and we cannot just go in and jump in and take care of it, because it's not going to work that way. So I just have to say, I'm so excited about both of these goals, and can't wait to get the book.
Yeah, I agree. I really appreciate you pursuing this. To me, this is an example of something that would be included in our system of education. It needs a higher level discussion, because us and any other school district that does this needs to have the resources to get it done well. Otherwise, we just have to work it into our current budget. So it's things just like this that are critical for our student learning that needs to be heard at a statewide level, and it needs to be appropriately funded in that, and not wait 10 years till the next decennial study, which is one of my modes of getting our budget or funding formula discussed way sooner than every 10 years. So have an ongoing discussion. So this is a very good example of something that would fit into that.
I'll just comment, yeah, you kind of ran this by Kevin and I in board leadership and agenda setting, and I mean, how could you not support this? And I fully support it. I would just comment that with the process that we went through a couple agenda items ago with the undertaking of the boundary line change at the administration level and the community engagement that is being proposed on this topic, just want to be careful we're not getting in over our heads, kind of talking about a lot overall, it feels like to me. I'm sure you've thought through that, but just wanted to get that in the room.
Yeah, thank you. I think the high school, we're going to have to be careful about that. For example, the high school boundaries discussion has to include our high school administrators, and so does this discussion, and having, Dan take one and Erica take the other maybe. To be honest, I'm going to be leaning heavily on Mike and Mars and Chad Berg and Johanna Burtkin for the student well-being goal. And facilitating those meetings. I want to be a part of those, but more as a participant than leading that. Yep. The staff well-being goal, I feel like the work that has to be done this year is really take the survey and get the DOCC together to respond to it. So that one's a smaller lift. Yep. But good feedback. That's the end. That's all we're going to do this year.
I meant the agenda item. I meant of item 5.6.
Yeah, I was just kidding.
Is there any further trustee discussion on 5.6? Okay, thank you. That concludes the discussion items at the retreat. I won't ask for public comment on non-agenda. Do we have executive cabinet reports today? Are there any Board of Trustee reports? Okay,
Wait, can I ask who's going to MCEL in person?
that's a great question. Thank you for asking that.
Okay.
I'm not signed up yet, but
Okay.
I think that I am. I honestly haven't got that far on my calendar.
Just curious
So it's a-
for driving, yeah, or whatever.
And we're up against a deadline, I think, on that, actually.
Yeah. I don't know. It was in my email, yeah.
Is it in Missoula? Yeah. Sorry? I do like Missoula.
Let Lori Ross know.
Yeah,
Yeah, if you're going or not. I think if she doesn't hear from you, she'll reach out.
she will reach out?
Yep.
Okay. Any further Board of Trustee reports? Seeing none, we will adjourn.